Fian's Michelle O'Neill not only remembers Republican dead, but lauds, praises and defends their indefensible actions. That does great harm to community cohesion.
Well, Northern Ireland is a society, as the Honourable Gentleman knows better than most, that has been undergoing a profound change since the signing of the Good Friday Agreement 28 years ago. And there is a legacy, as in the famous lines, we have a shared history, but not necessarily a shared memory. And the progress we have seen is because Northern Ireland society has been working to move beyond that. But one of the people I met who was there on the night of the violence said, we now have another other in Northern Ireland. The Honourable Member will be familiar with the traditional divisions. There is now another other, which is the ethnic minority population of Northern Ireland, that is terrified about what's happening, and we don't want to add to the travails of the past by not being very clear how unacceptable it is to see that on the streets of Belfast today.
Community cohesion is deeply threatened by the violence and menace on the streets last month, including the deliberate orchestration and including by paramilitary flags and trappings that now fly as bold as brass from lampposts in my constituencies and in many others, and we can no longer pretend the loyalist paramilitaries are not a national security threat. But cohesion is also threatened by a sheer lack of delivery and lack of responsibility taking by the Northern Ireland Executive. The Secretary of State must now also see the role that vetoes and the structures play in that, and in the moment of peril we may now be in Stormont. When will he convene the process for democratic reform of the institutions that a majority of people, of parties and of MLAs have asked for?
Well, my honourable friend is right to raise this issue because now 5 of the main parties have come forward with various proposals for reform, and I've said to the party leaders that I wish to meet them to discuss those proposals. At the moment, time and effort is being expended on trying to sort out the problem of the budgets. On the question of paramilitary displays and flags, the PSNI now has new powers to remove them as a result of the recommendation of Jonathan Hall, the reviewer of terrorism.
Robin Swan.
Mr. Speaker, in his first answer, the Secretary of State said this was a problem that needed to be solved. A fortnight ago in my constituency, I arranged a round table that included the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, the Police, the Executive Office, the Department for the Communities and many other organisations and representative organisations, including the Black Diamond Initiative. It was all very apparent. They all had their strategies, they all had their procedures, but what they didn't have was a coordinated response, that they were all looking to the Executive to actually pull all those organisations together. If that dysfunction at the top of our Executive isn't allowing that to happen, what actions will the Secretary of State take?
Well, there is a responsibility above all on the Northern Ireland Executive to deliver for the people of Northern Ireland. So 40% of the time since the Good Friday Agreement, there being no executive in Northern Ireland hasn't helped to achieve that objective. I'll take one issue. There is an acute housing crisis in Northern Ireland, as there is in other parts of the United Kingdom. So taking action to enable more homes to be built, one of the issues that needs to be addressed is the fact that the water infrastructure system can't cope. Sort that out and you can build more homes.
Mike Wood. Shut
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The attempted murder of Stephen Ogilvie in Belfast last month shocked people throughout the country. And the man accused of this horrific attack is thought to have crossed into Northern Ireland illegally from the south. So people from all communities are asking what more can be done to prevent people coming into the UK illegally across this land border. Following the terrible event in Belfast last month, will the government now commit to significantly enhanced operations on the border similar to those already run by the Republic?
Well, we have already increased the number of operations and arrests in Northern Ireland in the last 2 years compared with the previous period. About 1,000 people who have no right to be in Northern Ireland have been removed, including 500 who have been returned to the Republic of Ireland. The honourable member will be well aware of the importance of the open border, so it is intelligence-led policing at the ports, the airports, Operation Gull, and visits to workplaces that has resulted in more people being detained and removed.
For Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
My honourable friend is a powerful campaigner on this issue. The Secretary of State and I recognise the importance of fishing industries across the United Kingdom. He visited Kilkeel earlier this year with Minister Muir, where this was raised. Immigration changes are designed to ensure our domestic workforce has access to good jobs, and the Secretary of State has written to the Home Secretary about this issue.
Alison Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his response. But unfortunately, jobs at Whitby Seafood, the country's largest scampi supplier to caterers, remain at risk. And that's because, as the Minister knows, around 70% of crews who operate out of Kilkeel who catch the nephrops or scampi are foreign workers who will no longer qualify under the new visa rules from the end of this year. And while efforts to hire more domestic workers are underway, a small number of bespoke seasonal visas could save the scampi industry. And will my honourable friend redouble his efforts to work with colleagues to secure a solution and protect these jobs in Northern Ireland and Whitby?
We have written, as I say, to the Home Secretary to set out these issues with her, and I'm sure my honourable friend will be making her case very powerfully as well. Can I also just say it is our duty to work with businesses across the UK to ensure that they are ready for these changes. We want our fishing industry to thrive and people here to benefit from those good jobs.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for his answer. The severe financial impact that the restricted skilled worker visas are having on family-owned trawlers in Portavogie, Ardclass and Kilkeel face a perfect storm. Fuel costs, newly imposed Isle of Man transit barriers. The Minister knows the issue. I met the Immigration Minister, the Honourable Lady met the Immigration Minister as well. There is a proposal that could be acceptable. Will the Minister add his support to that to ensure that the historic fleet in Portavogie, Ardglass and Kilkeel is permanently in a position to fish the seas round the coast of Northern Ireland and to ensure that our fishing sector has a secure and future? And we ask that very much.
Well, we support our fishing sector totally, as he will know. I'll be very interested to hear more about the proposals, and if the Minister is speaking with the honourable gentleman and my honourable friend, I will of course be trying to be part of those meetings to hear what I can hear.
Samuel Wilson.
Question number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Stay.
I meet regularly with the logistics sector and businesses trading between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, including through the Northern Ireland Business Stakeholders Group, to discuss how we can make the Windsor framework operate as smoothly as possible.
Yes, the Minister will be well aware of the importance of the industry in Northern Ireland and also the burdens which it is falling under at present because of the Brexit arrangements, which have pushed up costs, led to delays and also meant that many containers are coming back empty from GB, on top of which we now have a carbon tax on ferries coming to Northern Ireland and from Northern Ireland, adding to costs. Does he recognise that the logistics industry is important to Northern Ireland? It's being strangled by the arrangements with the EU and by the net zero policies, and what steps does he intend to take to address those issues?
Well, I would say to the honourable gentleman on the ETS, yes, we are applying a carbon charge to boat movements between GB and Northern Ireland, the same that is being applied between GB and the Republic of Ireland. But the reason for that is to ensure that the carbon border adjustment mechanism does not hit businesses in Northern Ireland, which he would be very cross about if that were to be the case. I would simply say to him, if things are as bad as he describes, why is Northern Ireland one of the fastest growing parts of the United Kingdom economy?
Question 7, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer questions 7 and 11 together. I meet the leaders of the main Northern Ireland political parties on Thursday, the 11th of June, to discuss the terrible disorder. The attack on Mr. Ogilvie was truly shocking, but the racist violence we saw in response had no justification whatsoever.
Ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Roma have suffered centuries of prejudice and hate under the Nazis, who were subject to concentration camps and genocide. Roma people have made their home in my constituency and in Northern Ireland and should be treated with decency. Yet they have been subject to terrible racist violence in Northern Ireland. What steps is my right honourable friend taking with the Northern Ireland Executive to safeguard the Roma community in Northern Ireland?
I think the single most important thing...
We've got David Lammy in the hot seat because the Prime Minister's across at the NATO summit in Ankara, isn't he, Alex? What do we think will be on the topic of discussion today?
Well, I think James Cleverly, the Shadow Housing Secretary, is likely to stand in for Kemi Badenoch. And I think defence spending could be quite high on the agenda, given that Starmer is at the NATO summit and Kemi Badenoch has been critical of the fact that he's going there as powerless as a Prime Minister, as she says, and with a defence investment plan that she says is not fit for purpose. But maybe we also hear questions about Andy Burnham, whether he is facing enough scrutiny, given he is likely to replace Keir Starmer in just a few weeks' time. Maybe that's what James Cleverly wants to press David Lammy on, and even whether David Lammy will be in post in just a couple of weeks' time.
And Alex, of course, the big political story yesterday was all swirling around Nigel Farage and reform. Do we know if any of the Reform MPs have questions in PMQs today?
I'm not sure, actually, Jane. I don't know about that. But, of course, this Clacton by-election is going to overshadow anything that takes place in the Commons today. We might see some barbs against Nigel Farage, as all the opposition parties have decided they are not going to contest the by-election or stand candidates. Kemi Badenoch saying it's a fake by-election, others saying it's a political stunt by Farage to distract from the fact that he's facing two Commons investigations into gifts and donations he received from political allies before he was an MP. Nigel Farage has denied wrongdoing and is obviously wanting to take this whole issue to the people of Clacton, causing this by-election and wanting to run in it to seek a mini vote of confidence. That's how Reform insiders are pitching it to me, and he's pitching this as an establishment versus the people by-election. I'm sure we'll see some criticism of that approach at Deputy PMQs.
And of course, this is Deputy PMQs because the Prime Minister's away in NATO, in Ankara, but next week will be his last one.
That's right, Jane. That will be his last PMQs as Prime Minister as he prepares to hand over the reins to Andy Burnham after he, of course, stormed ahead in that Makerfield by-election just a few weeks ago. It feels like a lot longer now. There's much that's happened since then. So that will be his last outing. And this, the NATO summit, too, one of the last big events of his premiership. He was seen as being good on the international stage, Keir Starmer. He faced a lot of criticism for some of the missteps he made domestically around welfare and other policy issues. But on the international stage, he did receive some praise for boosting the UK's image on the world stage, for being a big presence in NATO and the coalition of the willing around Ukraine. So that is what he is doing at the moment. But obviously standing in for him now is David Lammy, and he will be taking questions, we think, from James Cleverly, the Shadow Housing Secretary.
And as we limp towards the summer recess when MPs get a big break for the summer holidays, what's your feeling about the mood amongst them? Are they all exhausted by the politics of the last few weeks?
I imagine they are, Jane. I mean, we've just had, just a few weeks ago, that Makerfield by-election where Labour, obviously, with Andy Burnham at the head, stormed ahead, and Reform probably disappointed that they didn't do better in that by-election, and that was just a few weeks ago, and now we've got Clacton.
Let's listen in to David Lammy, standing in for the Prime Minister.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've been asked to reply on behalf of the Prime Minister who's attending the NATO summit. Working with our allies, we're strengthening Europe's role in the alliance that remains the cornerstone of our national security. Yesterday, the Prime Minister met with the Prime Minister of Norway, and I'm sure this House will join me in wishing good luck to the England team ahead of the World Cup quarter-finals. Mr. Speaker, this week we mark the awful anniversary of 7/7, a day when people travelling through London on a bright summer morning had their lives ended and changed forever, including my best friend, James Adams. We remember all those affected by those terrible attacks, and we will always stand against terrorism. And Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party also pays tribute to Sir George Howarth. He was a champion for Knowsley, a distinguished colleague, and a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. We'll miss him deeply, and our condolences are with his wife Julie and his family. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I entirely associate myself with the Deputy Prime Minister's opening and personal remarks? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Right Honourable Gentleman from Makerfield are both proud football fans. So given that the Deputy Prime Minister clearly thinks the Prime Minister has always been match fit, how does he feel that his own MPs are given the boss the red card and brought on a left winger to get them out of the relegation zone?
That's not bad for someone who represents the Premier League side. But 2 years since the election, the honourable member still needs to engage with the facts of the Tories' failed period in government. As his colleagues now accept this, the former Treasury Minister, the former Community Secretary, the former Health Minister, the former Immigration Minister, and that's just the member for Newark. He wrecked the country, helped wreck the Tory party, and now wants to do it all over again with reform.
Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 3 weeks' time, Greater Manchester residents will have the chance to vote for Labour's brilliant candidate, Bev Craig, to be I've worked with Bev for many years, so I know her strong record as a leader and what an outstanding mayor she'll be. Will the Deputy Prime Minister join me in welcoming Bev's pledge to extend free travel on public transport to all 11 to 18-year-olds? So all our young people in Greater Manchester can have the independence to travel to the work, education and leisure opportunities they deserve.
Well, I agree with my honourable friend. Bev Craig will be a brilliant mayor for Greater Manchester. I'm proud that Labour is putting power over bus services back in the hands of local leaders. This government has extended franchising powers, capped fares, invested to deliver better services, and we're ensuring children can enjoy free bus travel this summer. I'm sure colleagues will want to get behind Bev in Greater Manchester so that we can defeat Reform's divisive candidate and drive the agenda forward under a new mayor.
Shadow Secretary of State, Sir James Cleverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to echo the Right Honourable Gentleman's tribute to Sir George Howarth and pass on my party's condolences to his friends, family and loved ones. I also wish to echo his support and encouragement to the England football team in their forthcoming match against Norway. And of course, I will echo his words about those people murdered on 7/7, their friends, their families, but also pay tribute to the emergency services that did so much on that day. Will he apologise to the victims of the rapists, sexual predators and paedophiles that he is planning to release early?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to welcome the Shadow Housing Secretary to the dispatch box. He, of course, could have been doing this job every week if he were better with numbers. He's the Foreign Secretary. He was the Foreign Secretary in government that botched Brexit, the Home Secretary in a government that decimated neighbourhood policing, and one of the shortest-serving education secretaries in our history. Now, he asks about a very serious issue, and every decision we have taken has been based on public safety and delivering justice for victims. Let's talk about the context. The last Labour government built 28,000 prison places. We're building 14,000 by 2031. We've already delivered 3,200. Under the Tories, they closed 23 prisons. 23. Gloucester closed. Shrewsbury closed. Portsmouth closed. Holloway closed. Northallerton closed. And what are they now? A block of flats. That's why we have to have an early release scheme. That's why we passed the Sentencing Act. And we're putting community powers locally to make sure that we protect the public.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he makes a joke about use of figures. Let me give him a figure. 50,000 prisoners released early in just 2 years on his watch. And I am genuinely shocked, Mr. Speaker, that when given the opportunity to apologise to victims, he very publicly failed to do so. And let me remind him what this is about. Let me quote Fiona Goddard, herself a victim of grooming gangs, who has been brave and open about how his policy will impact her. And she says, "Finding out that they may be released early has completely set me back. I have barely left the house. I feel constantly anxious, frightened, and unsafe. I can barely sleep." This is the impact his policy is having on victims. He refuses to apologise. But why is he pursuing a policy which he must know is both wrong and dangerous?
This is a very serious issue, and the honourable gentleman is experienced in this House. He knows that while he was Home Secretary, they had an early release scheme that set out 10,000 offenders, 10,000 under his... They had 6 schemes within a year. They had a scheme that they announced on the 6th of June 2023, another scheme on the 17th of October 2023, another scheme on the 8th of March 2024, another in April, another in May, another in June, all before the election. And that's why Rishi Sunak, it's rumoured, called the election in the first place. They left a system with just 83 empty cells. That's what the Justice Secretary previous to me inherited when she came into office. That's why we had to pass the sentencing scheme. He hasn't said what they would do now to fix the system. Of course we think of every victim. And that's why we're notifying victims in discussion with all victims. I sat last week in my surgery with a victim of grooming gangs. All of us want to see offenders locked up. That's why we've got to have prison capacity.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about 10,000 early release over 14 years of Conservative government. They have released 50,000 in 2 years. And he knows it's wrong. He is a good man. He must know that it is wrong to release 5,000 serious criminals, including rapists, including paedophiles. And not only does he know it's wrong, but his party knows it's wrong. 400 Labour MPs and not one voted to support the government's policy in the vote last night. They know it's wrong. The country knows it's wrong, but he insists on pursuing it anyway. So if he will not change course, will he at least make this guarantee that not one rapist or paedophile will be released early later on this year?
He hasn't proposed what they would do if they were in office. They released 10,000 with 4 different schemes, no impact assessment when they released them, no victim contact when they released them, no warning. They did it on the slide. And let us be clear, yes, we've got more probation officers. They, of course, cut probation, decimated it because of Chris Grayling. We've invested £700 million in probation. We're rolling out the largest programme of tagging in our history. We're forcing offenders to stay boxed in certain areas rather than where victims are. We're creating alcohol, pub, football and driving bans. We're implementing income reduction orders. And we're expanding chemical castration for sex offenders. None of it happened when they were in power.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he will look back on this exchange and I think he will be shocked by how this is coming across. No apology to the victims, no guarantee that paedophiles and rapists will not be released early. We all know that releasing dangerous criminals on purpose is the wrong thing, but not content with doing that, he is hell-bent on releasing dangerous criminals by accident. Last year, in response to the questions of my right honourable friend, the member for South Suffolk. He claimed that under Labour he had got a grip of accidental releases. Yet we now know there have been more accidental releases in the last 2 years than in the entirety of the last Parliament. So I give him another chance. Will he apologise to the country for his abject failure at keeping prisoners in prison where they belong?
I've got to say, this is rich coming from the honourable gentleman. They had 14 long years in power. They wrecked neighbourhood policing. He was Home Secretary. Prisons were at bursting point. That's why they called the general election. And they let out offenders in secret. And that is why we have the Sentencing Act that passed through this House and the House of Lords. What we're doing is we are getting thousands more bobbies on the beat. We're toughening up probation. They decimated it. And we have to have the space to knock up dangerous criminals. That's why we passed the sentencing bill.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, it's the dangerous criminals that he is letting out early. So he refuses to apologise to victims, he refuses to guarantee that sexual offenders and rapists will not be released early. Another thing that the country and indeed this House knows instinctively is wrong is his personal crusade to scrap trial by jury. We know that it will not clear the backlog. We know that it undermines fundamental British freedoms, and we know the legal profession is united against it. So will he now admit that it is wrong, and will he commit to reverse his proposals to scrap trial by jury?
Well, let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. There is no proposal before this House to scrap trial by jury. The honourable member needs to do better and get on the detail. There is a threshold change. There is a threshold change. Margaret Thatcher made a change to jury trials. David Cameron made a change to jury trials. The vast majority of criminal cases in this country are dealt with by magistrates, again, which they cut. We're restoring the magistracy, and they can do more. We're investing in our courts. They ran our courts down. We're modernising our courts. We're introducing digital ID, and we need reform.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he talks in glowing terms about what he's claiming to do. What we are actually seeing this government doing is stripping money from where it's needed and squandering it on the welfare bill, which has ballooned by £20 billion this year alone. And he talks about getting over the detail. Here's a simple detail for him. When I was Home Secretary, we had more police officers than at any point in British history. Since taking over, that number has dropped by over 2,000 officers. Mr. Speaker, at the dispatch box last week, my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, highlighted this government's failure to defend us internationally. Today, I have outlined his failure to defend us domestically. If the soon-to-be Prime Minister... Is he in the room anywhere? No. If the soon-to-be Prime Minister does not want to be complicit in his failure, he should come out and condemn this plan, not just hint that he opposes it. Because if Labour cannot protect the citizens of this country, either domestically or internationally, then what on earth is the point of them?
Mr. Speaker, he insists on proving that he can't count. We lost 16,000 police officers when they were in power. Mr. Speaker, the British people haven't forgotten what the party opposite did to our country. After 2 years of a Labour government, I'll compare our record every day of the week. Their record is the biggest fall in living standards in recorded history. Our record is the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation. Their record is wrecking our criminal justice system. Our record is bringing down violent crime. Their record is millions of people stuck on NHS waiting lists. Our record is cutting NHS waiting lists, the fastest rate in history. Their record is cutting defence. He was a reservist. They hollowed out the armed forces. Our record is the biggest boost to defence spending since the early 1990s. And our record is their record is plunging hundreds of thousands of children into poverty. Our record is lifting 500,000 of children out of poverty. I'll take our record over theirs any day of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Family C official report about the most depraved sexual abuse of children identifies serious failures by Glasgow City Council and other bodies. The report, Mr. Speaker, says one child victim banged on the windows, shouting at a health visitor not to leave. This was treated as streetwise and not a desperate cry for help. Staff described the same child with contempt, saying the child's behaviour was nasty and interfering. The children desperately needed compassion, love and safety, not contempt. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the Council must accept robust, independent scrutiny of what has happened and independent scrutiny of the implementation of improvements?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this case involves horrific offences against vulnerable children. I know all members of this House will join me in paying tribute to the victims who've shown remarkable bravery in coming forwards. It's evident that these children were dreadfully failed, and Glasgow City Council must urgently act on the recommendations of this review. I know my honourable friend has written to the Scottish Government to request an independent inquiry. The SNP should consider this request with the gravity that it deserves.
Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I associate myself and my party with the Deputy Prime Minister's tribute to Sir George Howarth, his remarks about the 7/7 bombings and all those who live with the consequences of that terrible day, and wish England good luck for Saturday evening. Yes. And as the UK braces for its 7th Prime Minister in a decade, can I also thank the Deputy Prime Minister for our exchanges and wish him well in whatever role he may have. No. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Clacton used to say... Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Clacton used to say, leave means leave. But it seems his latest stunt is to leave this place just so that he can return as a fully fledged member after not just one referendum on his behaviour, Mr. Speaker, but possibly 2. So will the Deputy Prime Minister join us in urging the Chancellor to delay the honourable member for Clacton's resignation until the investigation is complete, so the good people of Clacton have all the facts before they cast their votes? And failing that, will he support our Clacton clause, so that even once the honourable member ceases to be an MP, the investigations can continue?
Well, everyone can see that the Reform leader is just trying to distract from the fact that he's up to his neck in sleaze. He's got serious questions to answer and he can't run away from them. Labour isn't going to be part of this circus. I hear it's the people versus the establishment, the city trader, Putin admiring professional politician who's pals with crypto billionaires versus Count Binface. There have been unqualified joke candidates in the past. Let's see what the people of Clacton decide.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's clear it's a 2-horse race. Mr. Speaker, on a more serious and very sombre note. On a sombre note, Mr. Speaker, on a sombre note, MI5 has defended in court an agent that they knew to be openly misogynistic, obsessed with violence, and who used his position to coercively control his girlfriend Beth and attack her with a machete. To add insult to injury, MI5 also gave false evidence to the court. So will the Deputy Prime Minister use this opportunity to offer Beth a full apology on behalf of the government? And will he use his position to bring back a full Hillsborough bill next week which covers the security services so that we can pass the law before the summer recess?
Well, she raises a very serious issue, of course, and I will arrange for Beth to meet with the Security Minister to discuss this in detail. She also raises the Hillsborough bill, and I'm confident that this will be before the House in the coming days.
Emily Darwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Deputy Prime Minister and most of us across this House have been victims of AI-generated fake news, aka deepfakes. These mislead the public and they disrupt our democracy. BBC News coverage and coverage from other news channels is also being AI manipulated to tell untruths. Will he, alongside MPs from across this House, support the amendments I've tabled to the Representation of Peoples Act, which would force anything that is AI created to be labelled as such and stop the production of deepfakes of ourselves and colleagues, and stop the UK from these destructive tactics used by foreign states and others who wish to see our democracy made weaker?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. She's right that our protections must keep pace with evolving threats, including deepfakes. I know she's been in close discussions with ministers on this issue, and we will look at her amendment closely. We're absolutely focused on protecting our democracy against foreign interference.
Dr. Ellie Chard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our politics needs fixing fast. The broken, outdated first-past-the-post system has clearly failed to deliver stable government. We urgently need to rebuild trust in our democracy and ensure that everybody's vote counts equally. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield that proportional representation is an idea whose time has come? And does he agree with me and members across this House that time is now, before the next general election?
Well, I'm very pleased that she raises the issue of votes and democracies. But I've got to say this to the Greens. During the local elections, a Green councillor in Lewisham described me and the Shadow Foreign Secretary as coconuts. Her party looked the other way, kept her candidate in post, and have rewarded that candidate with a council job. I'm not making this up, the Cabinet Member for Healing. The Greens could start a healing process by stopping such racist language.
Douglas McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks the second anniversary of our Labour government, and two years on, my Western Bartonshire constituents now enjoy greater rights at work. Thousands of workers are now better off thanks to increases in national minimum wage. Thousands of children lifted out of poverty. Tens of millions of pounds in Pride in Place funding to communities previously left behind. Shipbuilding on decline secured with the Norwegian naval deal. Billions of pounds investment in Fast Lane. As well as a new youth hub set to open next month.
I think even what was it sitting down? It's not me. I think the Deputy Prime Minister could even answer that, but he just wants to answer.
Well, can I commend my honourable friend for the difference that he's made, including his hard work to bring Pride of Place funding to his constituency. He lists an amazing record in 2 years, and we've got 3 more to go, Mr. Speaker.
James Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Understandably, over the past week, rules and regulations have come under sharp focus. But even more important than the rules and regulation is the law. And on that topic, I believe there are a number of things where everyone in the House can agree and everyone in the House can feel proud. phrases such as without fear and favour, and symbols such as Lady Justice wearing a blindfold. Now, I'd like to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, however well-meaning actions from the MPCC and the College of Policing with their programmes such as the Race Action Plan may be, we have seen some very high-profile cases where civil unrest has, where faith in police has been shaken by what appears to be two-tier decision-making. So may I ask in good faith what the Deputy Prime Minister can do to reassure people that without fear and favour will always be maintained?
What can I say to the honourable gentleman? Everyone is equal before the law. That is the foundation on which openness, tolerance and generosity of this country is rested. And let's be clear, there is no two-tier justice in this country. And can I say, the honourable member was elected as a Reform Member of Parliament, and he clearly aspires to become one once more. Given reports that concerns were raised with the National Crime Agency about Nigel Farag's £5 million gift, he should be asking, where did the money really come from?
No law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply grateful for what the Prime Minister has helped us deliver in Cornwall the past couple of years, whether that's free breakfast clubs, urgent capital funding for GP surgeries, or the Kernow Industrial Growth Fund. However, what's held us back at various points, not beside the chuntering from the other side, I would argue completely unnecessarily, is something to which the answer is patently obvious to all in Cornwall: the question of who should be the masters of Cornwall's strategic destiny. Does he agree with me that the answer to this question must always be Cornwall? And will he make time for the government to lay the statutory instrument required to make Cornwall once and for all a strategic authority, so that when the Right Honourable Member for Makefield comes in, that we can ensure that good growth in every postcode and reindustrialisation of Cornwall?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend? He's right to champion the huge potential of Cornwall. We're absolutely committed to devolution and putting power in the hands of local leaders. Conversations with local authorities, including Cornwall, are ongoing, and we will confirm next steps as soon as possible. I know ministers will be happy to update it.
Dr. Ros Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituency of the South Cotswolds is the 9th most sewage polluted constituency in the entire country, with thousands of hours of sewage pouring into the Thames, Avon and Colne. But that metric of hours conceals the truth. It doesn't convey the actual volume, and clearly a trickle is very different from a gush. So will the Deputy Prime Minister arrange for me to meet with the relevant minister to require water companies to report on the volume and concentration of sewage discharges, as well as the number of hours?
Well, she's right. We inherited record levels of pollution. We're determined to tackle this and clean our waterways. We've acted by banning unfair bonuses, introducing jail time for law-breaking bosses, unlocking £104 billion of private investment to rebuild vital infrastructure to deliver cleaner waters, and, of course, we've got the Clean Water Bill. Of course, I'll arrange for her to meet with the Minister.
Cat Ettles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Stourbridge is famous for many things: the glass industry, Jude Bellingham, Robert Plant, and most importantly, the Stourbridge Shuttle, the UK's shortest railway line at just 0.8 miles, or 1.3 kilometres if you prefer metric, and it links Stourbridge Junction with Stourbridge Town. Despite its small size, it achieves an impressive 99.6% reliability compared to the West Midlands average of 64.4%. And one of my highlights as an MP was unveiling a shuttle car named after local legend George the Stourbridge Station Cat, whose global social media following made him a beloved fixture at the junction. And today marks the start of Shuttle Shorts, a short film festival celebrating the journey. The shuttle shows how community railway can improve local mobility. Does he agree that the pre-metro ambition to introduce a VLR service between Stourbridge and Brierley Hill is a valuable opportunity for GBR, and local businesses should be supported to do this?
First, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement about the future. It is coming home. And can I thank my honourable friend? I'm absolutely echo her sentiments on Jude Bellingham. He's not only making Stourbridge proud, but he's a source of pride for the whole nation. Great British Railways is in the biggest overhaul we're seeing of our railways in a generation. We'll work with all partners, including local authorities and local business, to drive investment, support economic growth and deliver better service for her constituents.
Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Constituents in the west side of North Shropshire were delighted when RIS3 was announced, because as part of the National Safety Programme, a roundabout at the desperately dangerous Hlunkers Crossroads became a step closer. But with the announcement that the Defence Investment Programme will be funded by cuts to transport programmes, can the Deputy Prime Minister reassure my constituents that the National Safety Programme won't be cut? And can he consider using the Liberal Democrat idea of defence bonds to fund the Defence Investment Plan so that critical security projects like transport are not put at risk through the programme?
We are raising defence spending to keep this country safe in an increasingly volatile world. That does require tough decisions, and the Department of Transport will set out £700 million worth of savings for roads funding, but we will consult on the next road investment strategy and set our decisions in due course. I can reassure the Honourable Lady that safety of passengers would always come first.
Pam Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be executed in this country. Her case serves as a haunting reminder of a time when our justice system ignored the realities of domestic abuse and coercive control. In the decades since, members of Ruth's family and supporters have campaigned unwaveringly for her to receive a posthumous pardon. Will the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that their courageous campaign and the terrible lessons of Ruth's case must strengthen the government's resolve to free women from devastating cycles of abuse?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. I have the honour to say that His Majesty the King has accepted our advice to grant Ruth Ellis a conditional pardon, the last woman to be hanged in the United Kingdom. While the pardon does not claim she was innocent of killing David Blakely, it replaces the death penalty with a sentence of life imprisonment to recognise a profound injustice in this exceptional case. I know her grandchildren, Laura Enston, Stephen Beard, are in the gallery with us today. We hope this brings a measure of peace to Ruth Ellis' family, who have carried the weight of what happened to her for over 70 years.
Gregory Camp.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Government have said that higher taxes are needed to fund rising welfare spending. In Northern Ireland, my party's Communities Minister is taking action to reduce welfare fraud and error. Previous discussions were held between Treasury and the Department that would have allowed Northern Ireland departments to retain a share of any savings to invest directly in public services, but those proposals were blocked by Sinn Féin. Would the Deputy Prime Minister ensure that the incoming Prime Minister will look at that approach again so that we can tackle benefit fraud, protect taxpayers' money, as well as delivering real benefits for communities across all of Northern Ireland?
Well, I know that my honourable friend, the Minister for Northern Ireland, is discussing the budget at this very time, but tackling fraud and error in the welfare system is a priority for this government. That's why we passed the Fraud, Error and Recovery Act, giving the DWP more powers to stop fraud in its tracks, recover money lost and prevent overpayments.
Murphy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yesterday I was proud to host a number of Basingstoke's Nepalese community here in Parliament, including a number of Gurkha veterans. One of the issues we discussed was that of Gurkha pensions, and I pay tribute to the work of my honourable friend for Aldershot for all of her work on this issue. I've been proud to work alongside her. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree that it is time to resolve the long-standing issue of Gurkha pensions, recognising the service and sacrifice of Gurkha veterans to our country?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. We owe a profound debt of gratitude to the Gurkhas who have served this country courageously. We're listening to the needs of the community, and we're already improving access to healthcare and community support. Ministers have met with veterans in the government of Nepal for constructive discussions on pensions. Those will continue, and I'd be happy to ensure that my honourable friend is kept updated.
Rebecca Paul.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Coughlin's Bakery, which was founded in 1937, has announced the closure of all of its stores, 5 of which are in my Reigate constituency. The reasons given by Sean Coughlin include recent employer national insurance and business rate hikes. This much-loved family business that has survived a world war and multiple recessions hasn't been able to survive this Labour government. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, how many businesses need to go under before this government learns that it can't tax its way to growth?
We're backing business with the lowest corporation tax in the G7. We've delivered the small business plan with the largest crackdown on late payments in 25 years. We're bringing down costs of business through 5 major trade deals. We've secured $365 billion in private investments since the election, and unemployment down over 400,000 more people in work than this time last year.
Final question for Session Lammy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last month I had the opportunity to host the South Bank Centre in my constituency, one of the many that I'm proud to have across Vauxhall and Campbell Green, for their 75th anniversary. The House may know that the South Bank Centre was built as part of the Festival of Britain 1951, which successfully saw people come together to share the identity after the ruins of the World War II. 75 years on, Mr Speaker, sadly the world is a more divided place. Recently, we've seen 2 far-right marches, including one go through my constituency, leaving many members feeling afraid. But, Mr Speaker, there is hope, as we see with the World Cup bringing people together, showing the power of culture and sport. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me? Now's the moment to continue to invest in the things that bring us together, just as the government did in 1951.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for the tireless work that she does in this area. She's absolutely right. We must stand united against those who seek to divide us. Our Social Cohesion Action Plan sets out how we will tackle extremism, bring communities together and restore national pride, and we're providing local communities with up to £1.7 million to insulate them against the threats to social cohesion.
Right, that completes Deputy Prime Minister's questions. Let from bench change over.
Well, that was Deputy Prime Minister's questions between David Lammy for the Government and James Cleverly for the Conservatives. At the very beginning of Prime Minister's questions, we heard about the certain candidates hoping to succeed Andy Burnham as Mayor of Greater Manchester. As a result, we must show you the full list of those whose names will appear on the ballot paper in that by-election. Well, let's cross live to Westminster and our political correspondent, Alexandra Rogers there. Alex, so perhaps no surprise that James Cleverly went on David Lammy's specialism, justice, and went on the early release of prisoners, and admission from David Lammy that those who are serving time for paedophilia or rape aren't necessarily going to be exempt from the government's early release scheme.
That's right, Jane, choosing a big domestic issue to go on in Deputy Prime Minister's questions. As you say, not a surprise given that, as well as being Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy is the Justice Secretary as well. And yet this is the controversial early release scheme, and it means that some prisoners will be eligible for early release, including those in prison for violent and sexual offences. And there have been calls for sexual offenders, the most serious, to be excluded from this, including from grooming gangs survivors who've been writing to MPs about this issue. But of course, David Lammy could not guarantee that, despite James Cleverly really pushing for that and for an apology. But where David Lammy came back was really highlighting the Tory record on prisons. He said every decision has been taken in the interests of public safety, and that Labour were building 14,000 prison places by 2031, whereas the Tories closed 23 prisons, he said. And he said they also left the system with just 83 empty cells. He said all of us want to see offenders locked up. That's why we have to have prison capacity. So for the government, their position is that they are having to take this difficult decision to free up space in prisons and to reduce overcrowding. But obviously it's controversial, and the Conservatives are trying to push them hard on this.
And Alex, also, we just had at the end there a little surprise, a little rabbit out of the hat for the family of Ruth Ellis, who were in the gallery. Now, she, of course, was the last woman to be executed in the UK, word that the King has granted a conditional pardon, so her death penalty is being replaced with a verdict of life imprisonment.
Yes, so that was the Labour MP Pam Cox who asked David Lammy about this case. And this is what she said. She said, her case serves as a haunting reminder of a time when our justice system ignored the realities of domestic abuse and coercive control. In his response, David Lammy did say that the King had accepted the government's advice to grant Ellis a conditional pardon, a conditional pardon. He said, we hope this brings a measure of peace to Ruth Ellis's family, who have carried the weight of what happened to her for over 70 years. So, yes, that was a bit unexpected, but welcome by her family.
Alex, thank you very much. World leaders are currently meeting for a second day at the NATO summit in Ankara in Turkey amid escalating tensions between America and Iran following overnight strikes. They all gathered together for a photo this morning. Earlier, Donald Trump said the ceasefire with Iran is over after America carried out a series of powerful strikes on the country last night. The US said it was punishing Tehran after 3 tankers came under fire in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran retaliated by targeting American military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. This is what Donald Trump had to say ahead of today's meetings.
I told him every time you hit, we hit. And, of course, they're dirty players, so they go after everyone, probably including me. I've been #1 on their list for years. And they're a bunch of scum, you want to know the truth. They're scum. And so we don't like them. I don't like them. And they're evil people, and it's the denuclearization of Iran. And we're going to denuke it. We're not going to let them because they're crazy, and they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Joining us now is founder and chief geostrategist at Fordham Global Insights, Tina Fordham. Tina, good to get your thoughts today. So first of all, the ceasefire itself. I mean, did you think that it was inevitable that it would come to an abrupt end?
Thanks very much for having me. And yes, it has been Schrodinger's ceasefire. Now you see it, now you don't. Oil prices